Pure Experiences.
Welcome to the Pure Experiences Podcasts.
So let us start with the self-inquiry questions which I received. And the first question is very heavy, very big question, and it is asked that what is my path? Now I have to assume a little bit here because the person is not in front of us, the person is not in the meeting. So I'm assuming that they are asking about a spiritual path. It is very tricky. It is very tricky to tell somebody that take this path or look that I am on this path and you also can benefit from this path. So go ahead and jump into the path. So as we know, there are many kinds of paths belonging to many traditions, many cultures. As many paths are there as there are these teachers. So it is very tricky. This one-line question will not help to give any accurate answers, you see. So what is my way of prescribing a path? As most of you already know, that I prefer to start with self-evaluation. You cannot simply choose a path like you choose some item in the supermarket. It is a kind of hit and trial. It's a waste of time and energy and effort. So what I recommend is do a little bit of self-evaluation. A path is like a medicine, isn't it? The problem is ignorance mostly, and or you want to achieve something, you want to get something. Usually a newcomer will want to get something initially instead of losing everything. That is not so appealing to the newcomer. It is okay, no problem, because you will need to start somewhere. So get something. You want to get good health, you want to get good mind, you want to get rid of suffering, you want happiness, you want success in life, you want supernatural powers, you want extraordinary experiences, whatever it is, no problem at all. But you will need to tell me that I want this. If you simply say, I tell me my path, and it's kind of, I'm also hitting in dark now, unless I am a mind reader or something, then it becomes easy. And I usually do that, and to read the mind, and I do that by asking a lot of questions. But this is self-inquiry app, so I get only one question, and I need to do my best there with this one-liner question. So those, if they are hearing the answer, then please do send in more information about what is it that you want. So it is like going to a doctor and asking for, please tell me cure. Now the doctor is going to stare at you because tell me what is the problem. Tell me what is the affliction. Then I'll prescribe a cure. So a path is like cure. You want to meditate because you want something, because you want to get rid of something. You want to worship a deity because you want something from deity. Or at least you can say, I love that thing and that's why I'm worshipping it. There must be a reason somewhere. Otherwise, what can anybody prescribe? What is there to prescribe if you don't want anything? So usually people do not even know what they want. And that is why I recommend do your self-evaluation. If you have a guru with you, if there is a guru nearby, you can go and ask, please tell me where I am, where do I stand on the ladder of evolution, so that I can take up some practice at least. I don't even know where to start. I don't know what I want. So you can go to the nearby teacher. It does not matter on what path the teacher is. Usually the teacher will say, okay, come and join me and look around for a while. Spend some time, spend a few months with me, and slowly you will get an idea. You will get the clarity to decide on a path. So you see, now I have 2 or 3 options for you. First is you do the self-evaluation. That will clear it up, which path is most suitable for you. Second is you need to express your wish. Third is you can go to a teacher, spend some time with the teacher, any teacher, nearest teacher to you. And the fourth is that you go to the teacher and ask for a self-evaluation. If you cannot do it yourself, that will not be self-evaluation, that will be only an evaluation. So how to do the self-evaluation? We'll start from that. And fortunately, we have a long discussion on this matter. So there are 2 or 3 episodes of podcast that discuss this whole technique of self-evaluation. Anybody can do it. Anybody. And with the technique, with the method of self-evaluation, I have suggested the suitable path. It is a good start, I must say. It is a good start. Because you are evolving entity, so there will be changes. As soon as you take up any path, the mind changes and the path also changes with it. So you will need to self-evaluate frequently. And in spiritual field, frequently means at least once or twice a year. You don't need to do it every day. It's not useful. So it is like a school where they take exams, which is like evaluation, how much you have progressed, how much you have learned in the school. So if you have progressed a little bit, you will pass the exam and then they will teach you more. That means they will admit you to the next class, next standard. Something like this. The path will keep changing. And where to start? Obviously, you cannot start at the college level. Usually people start with the nursery, KG level. So there, sit down, breathe and watch your mind. From there, they start. If it is not clear what should I do, then you should have a little bit of faith. You see, faith is a bad word, but if you do not know anything and still wish to be on a spiritual path, then blind faith. You see, go ahead, hit in the dark. What else can you do? Because I can give you a long lecture on which path does what. Probably you're not going to understand even one word of that. It is like taking a young child, 2-year-old, and telling the child, look, this is what we learn in physics, this is what we learn in chemistry, this is what we learn in biology, biochemistry, neurology. Is he going to understand anything? No. ABCD. Probably he does not even understand ABCD also. He takes it on the blind faith, repeats the ABCD after the teacher. That's how we start. So that's why I'm recommending that either go to the self-evaluation audio recordings, the podcast episodes, and give it a try. Evaluate yourself. Even half evaluation will be okay. And if that is also not satisfactory, go to the nearest teacher, join the teacher. Whatever resonates with you, whatever you like, if your nearest teacher is in some kind of odd and strange kind of practices and you don't like, don't go there. Then find somebody whom you like, the nearest one. Start there. Get a feel of what happens there. Do not commit blindly. So if you know what is happening there is no need to take on that path blindly. If you do not, then blind faith. If you do not know what is happening there, then it will be a faith-based thing to do. So that is the answer to the question, what is my path? And ultimately, the path will choose you. A human mind does not have the intelligence to choose the path. I'm telling you my story, actually. So I went through so many, like supermarket of traditions. I tried many. And then one day I settled on something. I'm never sure where I'm settled actually. That is the characteristic of a seeker, that uncertain, always uncertain. Because if you settle, if you commit, that means your progress has stopped there. Who knows where the paths go? Who knows what can you find on which path? Who knows if your assumption that I have to settle here is only an assumption? Who knows that there is a better thing to do, better path to take up always? So it is an open-ended thing, but slowly you settle down, just like a bouncing ball. It bounces up and down a little bit, but then settles down at one corner somewhere. So this is how it happens in the spiritual thing. It will never be the case that you will find a path and that will be the final for you forever. It is kind of very ideal thing to be. And it will never be the case that you ask somebody, it does not matter how big that person is, it does not matter how much knowledge that person has. And if he says, look, XYZ path, you take it, that is for you. It is not certain that that will be for you. Nobody can tell you what is your path. The path tells you to pick itself. It sounds like very mysterious. This is how it is. At least that is my experience. You will need to go through a few paths. There will be effort initially. And obviously the most natural path is where there is no effort. With the pathless path, the direct path. So I am assuming that I have settled down on a pathless path right now. But who knows? Never be so sure, never be so certain. This is an open-ended thing, spiritual journey. Knowledge is infinite. Progress is infinite. Can you say, I cannot progress beyond this? Can you say like this? How do you know? It's not possible to know. It is an open-ended thing. So start somewhere. Start at a good place. Start somewhere which you like. Do not use the intellect so much. It is like art. You try things. You try many, many things. And sometimes you like something. And then you find more things to try. It is not... you see, everything is like this in our lives, isn't it? For example, the relations. We keep trying. Some will get somebody. Or sometimes we settle. Okay, probably I'll never get into a relation which is better than this. So we have this kind of faith or assumption sometimes. Or your job or your business. We keep trying different jobs, different kind of businesses. And ultimately we settle on something which we like and we are earning a little bit. But we keep it open. We do not say, I'm going to do only this and this for the rest of my life. No, that is not an intelligent thing to do. We keep looking for more opportunities always. It is like this in all the domains of our life. And spiritual teachings, spiritual traditions and spiritual path is nothing special. It is not fixed for one person. Some people may have this idea, no, I was born in this tradition, so it's gone now. All options are exhausted. I have no freedom to get out of this tradition. I will stick to it no matter what. And if somebody tells me your tradition is boring, your tradition is foolish, I'm going to kill that person and continue on my path. So this is hard-headedness. This is stupidity. So open-mindedness, open to all possibilities. This is how a seeker is, always seeking. So do not settle. That is the answer. So we are on the second question now, and it is also from an anonymous person. And the question is, how to become more reliant on inner knowledge and trusting the information that comes from the inner source and distinguishing its origin. So 3 questions in one. How to become more reliant on inner knowledge. Let us start with a description of the inner knowledge. What is inner knowledge? What is outer knowledge? Can somebody guess? Is knowledge of 2 kinds, inner knowledge and outer knowledge? My understanding is that knowledge is of only one kind. It is that which we experience. It is that which we get after we form relations among our experience. When we organize the experience into meaningful relations, it is called knowledge. And we use logic, rational thinking, intellect to organize our experience. There is nothing called inner knowledge. There is nothing called outer knowledge. And now we can get into the accepted meaning of inner and outer, which is usually, it is accepted like this, that the knowledge of the world, the material world, is outer knowledge. Knowledge regarding the survival, acting in the world, and your relations with other people in society, your jobs and families. If you know something about that, that is outer knowledge. And inner is when I know about myself. You can exclude the body also. Body comes in the outer knowledge. When we concentrate on that which is subjective, when we focus on that which is related to I, myself, we can call it the inner knowledge. Now notice that this is only a convention There is no outer knowledge, there is no inner knowledge. It is only of one kind. All these things are experiences. What you call outer is an experience. What you call inner is an experience. This division is only for convenience, just to make everything clear. Otherwise, in principle, there is no distinction. What you call outer is also inner. It is being perceived here and now. There is nothing outside than the pure consciousness. Everything, all experience appears in consciousness. Otherwise, you will never know it. And therefore, all the experiences of one kind. You can, if you want, you can call it the inner experience. All the experience is inner, inside the consciousness. Is there anything outside the consciousness? No. So, but you see, it is more accurate to discard totally the inner and outer when it comes to experience. And since knowledge is derived from experience, there is no inner and outer as far as knowledge is concerned. So you can stick to the convention or you can throw it away. Probably the person is trying to ask the knowledge that comes without the senses, that is not based on senses or not on books, not on people, not on teacher. That is my intuitive knowledge. And again, it is experience. It is a direct experience. The experience that we label as inner experiences. So how to become more reliant on that? There is only one way to follow the inner knowledge that comes through the intuition that your minds tell you is like this. And that is to apply the knowledge. You are looking for an answer and the answer comes from within, which is kind of tricky to say because how can it come from within? There is nothing within. So let us say it comes from within, and all you can do is apply it. Just check logically and rationally whether it is safe to apply it or not, and then apply it, experiment, and check the results of the experiment. And now you see the results and judge the reliability, judge the accuracy of what has come from the inner source. This is one way. You cannot simply assume that whatever comes from inside is reliable, is okay, is true. No, it will be foolish. So the only way to judge it is through experimentation. So let us take an example. And the outer knowledge says that do whatever it takes to survive, get whatever you want through any means possible. And your inner self says that no, I need to be more discriminating. I need to use a specific kind of way that can be ethical or that can be more loving and less violent. And I need to choose my actions like this. Now, which one? The one is outer, which the society has taught you to be competitive and violent in the society, extrovert and liar, deceiver, whatever it takes. Fake it, that you think I cannot rely on that. And this one is coming from your inner self. So how to judge it? And the only way is to put it into practice. Put whatever your self has said, your inner voice is telling you, put it into practice step by step and see the results. If the results are as per your desires, as per your wish, which is it brings more happiness and freedom, makes you happy and sets you free, destroys your ignorance and so on, gives you a perfect experience, then you can trust the inner voice. You can now conclude that yes, it was a correct intuition. And the more it happens gradually, it is not going to happen that from tomorrow you start trusting your inner voice, whatever it is. From tomorrow you start trusting your intuition. It is not going to happen like this. Put it into practice. Get the experience, get the feedback from the universe. The universe will tell you, you see, what is the correct action, correct speech, correct thought. The universe will give you the feedback. The feedback is very simple. Either it is pain or pleasure. Either it is suffering or happiness. If whatever your inner source said brings a lot of suffering, and it is not a short-term suffering, it is not like a tiny bit of pain, but continues for many, many days and months and years, then now you know that you cannot rely on that voice, that inner voice. You need to be more practical now. You need to take advice from others, teachers and masters. And if it brings happiness and freedom, you feel light. That is the feeling that we get when we are freed from something. It is a feeling of lightness. Nothing to do now. I'm free. And that is the feedback that the universe gives whenever we take proper action, whenever our decision is right. So it's always in retrospect, isn't it? How can you decide that my inner voice is reliable now, and everything I'll do based on this inner voice, it is going to be perfect? No, that is kind of stupid. So it is always experimental. Put your inner knowledge to practice. See what fruit it brings. If it most of the time, say 80%, 90% of the time, it is bringing happiness and freedom, then you can rely. Then you can rely on your intuition. There are methods to sharpen your intuition also, which I have discussed somewhere while discussing the abilities of the mind. I've gone into a lot of detail there. So it is again a practice, some kind of practice to sharpen your intuition. And it also always starts with small steps, baby steps. Initially you do not trust your intuition at all. Then start applying it in the small matters, like which book to buy, which movie to watch, which person to talk to. You do not apply your intuition in, which political party should I join, which religion should I join, or where to marry, what property to buy. No, there the risk is too much. You see, the universe will reply you as usual, but it will hit you like a brick. You don't want that kind of risk. There you use your practical knowledge, the outer knowledge. You see, consult with your friends and family and people, experts, and use that knowledge. But in the small things, use intuition, where the repercussions, the consequences are not going to be heavy. Use your intuition there. And this is how you develop it, little by little. Go on using it for more important things, slowly. And as you can guess, it is going to take a lot of time. In the spiritual matters, nothing is instantaneous. It is always long journey. So the other part of the question is how to distinguish its origin. My experiences, you cannot do that. It comes from the mind. There is no such thing as my mind. The mind is an accumulation of memories. The memories have the content that always comes from experience. The experience can be inner, the experience can be outer, but the contents of the mind decide everything, what we are, what we do, what we think. This is all decided by the memory. Memory is not something which stores the phone number or name or your skill or the book that you read or the story of a movie or a song. No, that is not the memory. That is a tiny part of the memory. Memory is essentially the whole of your mind. That is what it is. You see, I'm talking from the memory. There is a memory of the language, then the memory of the facts, memory of my experiences, and every kind of process that is going on in my mind is a memory of some kind. So when I say it comes from the memory, it is the storehouse of experiences. It is not mine. It is not local. It is not in your head. So these things, you will need to go a little bit deeper in what the mind is. It is a metaphysical entity. It is a non-local information storage thing. That is also a model. What we see is only experiences. We do not see the model. We do not see the embodiment of the mind. It is invisible. How can you distinguish from where the intuition comes? It is always coming from the memory. Not my memory, not your memory, not from other. It is one whole. So that's why I said in the beginning, the distinction of inner and outer is kind of for convenience. There is no such distinction. It is always from this universe. It comes here and kinds of is digested or processed a little bit and then is thrown out. That is all the person is. It is like a tiny machine where things come in and then they are thrown out. It is kind of ignorance to call it as me, that I did it, or my mind. It's not my mind. We do not have a mind. We do not have an I. The person or the ego is a fiction. It does not exist. So you can use any kind of theory or any kind of model to model the mind and use it. But most refined kind of models of the mind say that it is universal in nature. There is nothing individual there. So if you want to isolate the source, well, let me see, this intuition, this knowledge is coming from me or somebody else. Well, impossible. Impossible. There is no me, there is no somebody else. See it like this. There are just experiences. And the mind or the ego, the identity creator, will categorize it kind of arbitrarily, randomly, based on its ignorance. Oh, it appeared out of nowhere. I just thought it someday, and it is now my knowledge, my intuition. No, that is kind of wrong to say. Who knows from where it came? And then you heard it from a guru or a person or read it in the book, and you say, no, outside knowledge. It is not my intuition. Now, let's see, there is no reason to say like this, because it is only the channel that is different. You know that there is something which delivered you this knowledge. That's all. That is the only difference. In the first case, you did not know from where it came, so you branded it as mine. The second case, you found something that looks like from there it is coming, and you say, oh, it is outside me. But no, it is apart from this kind of arbitrary distinction. There is no distinction between what appears as an experience, what appears as a knowledge. No distinction. And if somebody told you something, then just think from where he got that knowledge. You see, the knowledge, there must be an ultimate source. And if everybody get it from somebody else, then there is no source then. Ultimately, the source is inside only, isn't it? When we express it in this world, it appears like it is coming from outside. Who is expressing it? Not somebody's mind. There is no somebody. The universal mind is expressing it using one of its forms. That's all. That's all. So all the experience, all the knowledge is universal in nature. It's not my knowledge. It's not your knowledge. It's not coming from this source, that source. No. That is why there is a concept to describe this. It is called the guru field, about which I spoke for at least 1 hour. I went into a lot of details about what this guru field is, the Guru Kshetram. It is, you can say, an abstract concept which points to a storehouse of knowledge in the universal mind. Although you cannot see it, although you cannot point to it, look, there is the Guru field, go there. No, it is everywhere, isn't it? But for expressing, for the purpose of talking about it, expressing it in language, we can do this kind of abstraction of the Guru field, and we can say that it is the part of the universal memory where all the knowledge resides, and you can connect to it. And I've given a lot of methods to connect to it. And the most natural method is just seek, ask, search. You are always connected. So hopefully that answers this question, which was very intelligent question, actually. Very nice question. Thank you very much for asking. Now we have another variation of that question, that how to be able to be in touch and receive information from the inner self thoroughly. Now, whoever is asking these questions seems to be a very experienced seeker. So my earlier answer covers it almost 90%. How to get in touch with your inner self. There is only inner self, you see. If you are in touch with something, it is the self. Is there anything else? Have you witnessed anything else in your entire life except the self? Ask this question. If you think there is something besides the self, then it is only ignorance. There is only an assumption in your mind. Whatever is the inner self. So, by default, by necessity, you are always connected to the inner self. Where are you getting the information from? Inner self. There is no outer self. There is no lower self. There is no higher self. There is only self. So, if you do not know this, do some inquiry about this, search about this. There is one universal consciousness. That is all there is. You can call it as I, or you can call it as self. You can call it Atman. You can call it Brahman. Whatever you want to call it, you see. It is the only thing there is. So impossible to get if you're not connected, because how can you be not connected with the I? How can the I be not I? Is it possible? No. So if there is a disconnection that is felt, it must be ignorance. It must be only a thought. It must be an assumption in the mind. And investigate that assumption. Question it. Why did I think like this? Investigate like this. So this question points to the need to remove this ignorance, and that there are two. There are no two. Advait. There is only one. So that when you know that is the case, the question will disappear. One more question, which is kind of amusing. And the person is asking now, why am I unhappy? Why am I unhappy? Can somebody guess? Can somebody who is listening give me a little bit of hint? Why somebody can be unhappy? Now, this is the beauty of the self-inquiry app. You don't know anything. You cannot say that, tell me what happened. What went wrong in your life? I cannot ask this, you see. So I'm forced to answer in the most general possible way. That ensures that it is a spiritual kind of answer, isn't it? And if the person said, oh, something happened on my job, I was fired from the job, that's why I'm unhappy. Now it will force my mind to give a practical kind of answer, worldly answer. Okay, I can say that, don't worry, then apply for a next job. Probably that job is not good for you. If you get fired from a job, then obviously it's not the job. It's not good for you. You're not good for the job. So I'll come up with this kind of answers if the reason is provided, if the person is in front of me. But the beauty here is that people write one-liner. They assume that, you see, it says self. So I'll get a magical answer from the self. Don't worry, you will get the magical answer only. So any comments? Why can somebody be unhappy? And that will also, if you talk a little bit, that will also make me comfortable that I'm not talking to my monitor. Okay, Ajay is saying because of the darkness or ignorance about true nature. Okay, any more comments? Yes, there are two things in the question. First is the I. The second is unhappy. And in my opinion, or you can say from my perspective, both of them do not exist. Both of them are mental constructs. Both of them are illusory imagination. So yes, that is again, you see, just a description of the ignorance. So there is no separate I which is unhappy. There is no me who can get unhappy. This is the first thing to know. And once you see that there is no separate self which has this kind of state of unhappiness, then the question disappears. Now what are you asking? There is no I and no unhappiness, so nothing to ask about. So this is a very refined state, as you can see, and this requires the knowledge of the self. This requires the introspection, self-inquiry, to know what is my essence, what is the essence of the I. And once it is seen that there is no separate I, there is no separate self or individual who can be happy or unhappy, then the question will be dropped. The answer will not come. Don't worry. There is no answer, because the answer is to that which exists. If something does not exist, there is no answer to that. The question is seen as invalid question. The question is seen as coming out of ignorance. So I'm 100% sure that this answer is not going to benefit anyone. So let us see, and let us assume that there is an I. There is a separate self, individual or a person. We can say it is the body and the mind. let us, give a concession, drop down into the illusion one step, because the person is probably, you see, will not understand the ultimate, which I just said. So let us assume it is true that there is a person, an individual there, defined by the body and the mind, whatever goes on in the body and the mind, and he is unhappy, he or she. Now, what is unhappiness? And like Mukul said, it is unfulfilled desires. We expect some desire to be fulfilled, it is not fulfilled. What happens? The state of the mind changes from desiring to disappointment. That is unhappiness. That is the illusory answer, but I don't need to tell it again and again. You can understand this, that we are talking from the perspective of an ignorant, a separate self. So that is the unhappiness. You will find that there is the mind, our inner space. In that mind are desires. They appear. I do not choose my desires. Let us start from here. Start from this internal seeing, the introspection. Look, who is choosing the desires? The desires appear first. Then I say it in my mind that I desire, isn't it? This is my direct experience. And what do we do then? The desires are motivating force. They push the body into action. So we run to fulfill that desire. It can be a small desire to go and eat something, you see. It can be a big desire to rule the planet. Something like this. It can be anything. And the desire is a motivating force. You can define the desire like this. Intention. The word tension says that it is pulling you. Internal tension. And another word is desire. Wish and expectation is kind of a desire. We want something to happen in a specific way. That is a desire. And then the body runs to fulfill it. Where else will you fulfill your desire if not in the world? Imagine if you could fulfill all your desire in your mind. Wouldn't it be like heavenly? Probably that is heaven only. So the individual assumes that the fulfillment of my desire lies in the world. So where else can he run? Isn't it? Our waking state is the world. That is all we know. We run into the world. We run after objects, people, achievements, situations, whatever, to fulfill that which appeared in the mind from nowhere. And you will find something funny, that I also have a delusion that I am in the control and I can fulfill it. My actions are going to fulfill the desire. Now, you see, desire, expectation, and this feeling of being in control, and plus the illusion of free will, that it is my desire, I desired it. So, and I'm in the control, I'll fulfill it. This is a recipe of disaster. Can you see? This is you mix many acids and chemical in the chemistry lab, and what can you expect? It is like that. You expect a big explosion. Suffering, unhappiness is this disaster. That's all. That is the good definition of unhappiness. If you want to know what is unhappiness, I cannot tell you what is happiness, isn't it? Can I tell you what is happiness? Have you ever experienced happiness? No, never. You only experience this, violent combustion of chemicals, things that happen in the mind, in the world. Have you ever experienced anything else? Because you have experienced the bliss, but you call it sleep, you call it inactivity. You find it boring. The individual does not like it. So much so that we completely ignore it. It does not exist. The happiness does not exist for an individual. The individual is a name for misery. Take misery, take individual, one thing, you see. That's why we say the ego is miserable. You see, Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. Among all things, he chose the word pain to describe it. Yes, it is a pain actually. That is what it is doing. Can you see? We get up from the bed because of a desire. Did you get up from the bed that I'll not do nothing today? I'll just sit. I'll remain in the deep sleep today. Did it happen No. Individual is born as soon as it is out of the bed. It is as soon as the activity of the mind starts, the individual starts. This is one more thing to introspect. See it. Wake up very, very slowly one morning. If you do that, you will find that initially there is no individual, there is just mental activity. Then the desires start, the intentions start appearing. And the individual is born because the I thought appears, oh, my desires. And that will unconsciously, you think you are waking up, but you are still asleep, because unconsciously it propels the body into doing something. Usually it will eat and go and brush the teeth and take a bath and drive to the work, and this sansar starts. The wheel turns. This happens every day. This is happening since many years. This is happening since many ages. You don't even know it. You don't even know how long this is happening. This is what we call as the cycle of birth and death, the sansaric activity of the mind. And the mind is not my mind. This is now something big. This is called the jiv. And the desire is always of the jiv. It is called the karmic stuff, the impressions, samskar. The sanskar give rise to sansar. So, and there is a bigger cycle here. Waking up and going to sleep is a smaller cycle that corresponds to the bigger cycle of dying and taking birth. So you can now suspect that we are born to fulfill some desires. Now, don't give it a name that I'm born to, marry and have children, or I'm born here to rule this country, to become a big shot or something, or I'm born here to serve humanity. No, these are not the real desires. There are germs of the desires, into which I'm not going to go today. That is called latent desires also, or we call it latent impressions also, and that the Sanskrit word is sanskar for that. It is not a desire that can be stated in words. If you are in the yogic practices, if you are diving deep into the mind, you can actually see the latent desires. You can see them, and because they are latent, they will need to be pushed into a little bit of action, and you can see their face a little bit, and probably it will be very difficult to put them into any kind of language, because the language that we use is of the waking state, when the desire is full blown manifested here. It is right here in my mind. We can use a language to describe it. What is the desire? What is the root desire? The root desire, the basic desire, is to be happy. Can you see? What are we desiring? I want this, I want it. No. We are desiring happiness. And just like I said, you cannot get it. There is no such thing as happiness. The happiness that you experience sometimes is because of the absence of these desires. This is another thing to introspect about. When were you most happy? When your desires were gone, when the desires were fulfilled, you wanted nothing. That is then expressed as laughter, smiles, joy, pleasure, dance, song, party, who knows what. So you want that, isn't it? And when this is not there, you say, I'm unhappy, I'm miserable, I'm suffering. So desires or this motive forces are present, expectations are present, hopes are present, and this delusion of control is present. These all combine to form a situation which we call unhappiness, dukkha. That's why Gautam Buddha said, sansar is the dukkha. Well, this birth, this world is suffering. This is how he arrived at this conclusion, you see. Do not think that one day he sat down below a tree and concluded willy-nilly, oh, the world is a kind of boring place, full of suffering. No, he did not simply see the dying man and old man and the beggar. And no. That started his journey. See how deep this insight is. It took me 15 minutes to explain it in short, but it is very, very deep. It can be found through your own experience of what happens in the mind. Can somebody tell you that you are unhappy, that the world is suffering, that there is no happiness? Will you believe somebody blindly? Can you believe me? No. Only if I take you like this, step by step, to the conclusion. Look, the activity of the mind is responsible for what you think is unhappiness. That is the answer to your question. Why am I happy? Why am I unhappy? You never ask this, why am I happy? You always, when something goes wrong, then only you question, isn't it? So suffering is a big teacher, isn't it? Suffering is our guru. It's a good thing. Without suffering, you will never learn anything. That's why I said, you see, if our desires are fulfilled like this, it would be a heavenly experience. And if you don't believe me, don't believe. But there are these states of the mind, there are places in the universal mind where exactly the same thing happens. Whatever you desire is right there in front of you. And people call it heaven. What happens there is that the jiva is trapped in fulfilling endless desires. Because they're infinite. Activity of the mind cannot be stopped. All the activity is appearance of desires only, intentions and desires. Right now you can assume like this, you see, don't make it so complicated. And you can achieve that state where there is instant fulfillment of desire only in the mind. It is called heaven, and the jiva, or the this bundle of memories that is engaged in this kind of activity, is called a god or a deity, ascended master or something like this. So now, without going into the detail, this activity that is happening right now is activity of a greater mind. You can explore like this if you are interested. That is not going to end your suffering. That is not going to end the misery, because mind is impermanent, and the heavenly states, they do not last. And we say that the mind falls, and it finds in this kind of itself in this kind of world again in the sansar, again trapped in this wheel of desires. They're infinite, so it goes on and on, and you don't know how much time has passed. You are doing only this. There is no time in absolute sense. So, well, you understand now how deep this question is. But don't worry, there is a solution. If you get rid of the activity of the mind, that is the end of the suffering. Now you will say, tell me the formula to get rid of the activity of the mind. You will say, the me is also mind. You will need to know your true nature, which is pure consciousness, that which is witnessing all this madness, all this activity. Chitta vritti, you cannot stop it. Some people interpret Patanjali like, Nirodh means stopping. And Nirodh means many things. Actually, I was going through a book which is a commentary of Vyas on Patanjali, and also some side notes by Vachaspati Mishra. Now, these names must be familiar to those who are deep into the text in Sanskrit literature. But I was going through it just for some purpose, and I found something very interesting, that Vyasa has a little bit of different kind of interpretation of Patanjali. It is kind of interesting. Those who are interested in the yoga philosophy or Sankhya philosophy, knowing yourself is not going to stop the activity of the mind. Union with whatever is not going to stop the activity of the mind. The union of the Shiv and Shakti, not going to stop it, almost guaranteed. That's why we have the Shakti worshippers. They know this very well. Shakti is what? Activity of the mind, nothing else. So Shiv is what? Shiv is you. Shivoham. I am the consciousness. I am the dark one, black one, which cannot be seen. You see? And Shakti is that whatever is manifested, whatever can be seen in any form, any place. So this do not expect the mind to stop. You see, do not interpret the Nirodh as disappearance of the mind. No mind. There is no such thing. That is my opinion. If you don't believe me, you need to do your own research. I'm not saying I'm the right, I'm interpreting it rightly. This is my experience actually. And utilizing the principle of as below so above, you can say that it will never happen. The activity will never stop. But don't worry, there is a way out of it. That is called disidentification. I am not this activity. What is the major activity of the mind? Production of the misery. So I am not this. I am not unhappy. What am I? I am pure bliss. I am absence of all these activities. I am that which witnesses all these things, and therefore these qualities, these activities do not happen to me. They happen in me. I experience them, but not as myself. This identification. Then what happens? Will it get rid of suffering, misery? No. Don't be so happy. Don't be so quick. Slow detachment happens with the mind. Very slow process. May take few lifetimes. And then the mind is freed from the activity. The Jeev is freed from the activity. It is a free soul. It is a liberated individual. And the liberation of the individual is disappearance of the boundaries of the individual. No more individual. You can see that it is right now like this. You can see it like this. Right now also there is no individual. And right now also the states of the mind, including all the unhappy states, they do not belong to me, not mine. This is only due to identification. It is not going to change the mind instantly. It takes a lot of time for it to give up the activity. There are three kinds of activities that are identified in Advait. And the first is you know all those. You see, Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. Tamas is that you have a negative kind of mind, lazy mind, ignorant mind, you see, stupid mind, and most of the activities, avoiding the activity. That's all it does. Tamas, very dark state of the mind. And Rajas is exactly opposite. A very active mind, very bright mind, very intelligent mind, the go-getter, you see, successful person. That is the Rajasic mind. Sattvic is the balanced mind, about which I am not going to say a lot, but it involves the detachment. It involves the disidentification with both Tamas and Rajas. That is the Sattva. This is how we classify the activity of the mind in Advaita, at least. And Patanjali has his own way. He has 5 kinds of activities there. You go and read it. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting how people have approached this problem from so many ways. They have found so many solutions. And ultimately, if all boils down that I am not the mind. I am not this activity. Any kind of activity, I am not it. Even the sattvic activity, I am not it. But the goal of the yogi or Jnani is to arrive at the sattva, at the balance. Because we know it's not going to end. So balance it a little bit. Let the pendulum not swing too much, you see. Let it just vibrate at one place. This is what the Hermetic teachings will also say. Very, very close to Vedic teachings. And how to do that. How to have a sattvic mind. And there are many ways. And Ashtanga Yoga is one, which is proposed with Patanjali. And path of knowledge is one, where complete disidentification, and then you let the mind do whatever it does. You are always in the blissful state, which is called samadhi. There is a way of Gautam Buddha, which is his own way, the middle way. So it will not be possible for me to get into long discussions about this. But here your path starts, isn't it? Suffering has brought you to here. Now it's all open for you. Choose any path and get rid of the suffering. Don't worry, it's not your suffering. These are states of the mind corresponding to the waking state, and just purify the mind. Do your best. I'm not guaranteeing that the mind will become a happy mind. You are happiness. Mind is not happiness, you see. I am the bliss. I am the Anand. I am the Satchitanand. Not the mind. That's why I said I do not expect the mind to do anything at all. It will do something, it will not do something. Well, it's kind of up to the mind. The purification will happen if you take up a path. This is guaranteed.
Pure experiences.
You were listening to Pure Experiences by Tharun Pradhan.